Well, thank you, first of all, for the nice introduction. Um, I I think I'm in partnership with my colleagues here when I say, the top challenges, forward-looking, future-looking, are always to hopefully bet on the right strategies and the right technologies. And we're constantly fighting a battle of refresh and recycle and renew while trying to eliminate as much legacy debt and risk as we can. Right? We're always trying to shed risk and add new technologies that make our platforms more safe, more secure, more robust in every way. And again, there's always a limited amount of dollars in the budget, and we have to work with what we have. So the key areas that we're focusing on is where we can get a 2-for-1 return, right? Or a 2-for-1 budget dollar return. If we can eliminate legacy and eliminate risk at the same time launching net new capabilities that are faster, more resilient, and better in every way, we believe that that's sort of a double return on investment for the taxpayers as it relates to government IT. So we're focusing all of our strategies there instead of just ripping and replacing old with new or expanding current programs or systems. We're constantly looking where we can get a 2-for-1 return and eliminate risk while adding capability.
Jason?
Great answer, Brian. I love going second because then I can capitalize on all of the great things that were just said. Completely agree. Couldn't agree more. There's a constant challenge, and we need to figure out how we can leverage kind of what we have to return the most bang for the buck, if you will. I would certainly say cybersecurity is going to, has been, and will be, or continue being certainly a challenge. This is where really focusing on, a multi-pronged approach, whether it's, strengthening and enhancing processes that we have as it relates to the new environment that we find ourselves in with the remote situation that a lot of us are in right now. Again, taking another look at our policies to make sure that they reinforce the environment that we're in and align with the strategic direction of the departments, of any department. This is my 5th agency I've been to, so very similar in terms of approach. Looking at tools, some of the tools that perhaps we were looking or using prior, have been focused, and an example is collaboration tools. Just to share, prior to the pandemic, we were looking around 60,000, collaboration meetings a month. Now we're close to 500,000 a month. So the caliber of the tools and the functionality of the tools are something constant looking at. And then education. Education has been absolutely critical, making sure that we're focusing on the challenges that we're dealing with and educating our users on, what do they need to do, whether it's from a cybersecurity standpoint or this new way of how a lot of us are working.
Nagesh, on to you.
Sure, and thank you to everyone for allowing me to be part of this program today. It's nice to be with esteemed colleagues like yourself, Paula B., Ryan, and Jason, and also to the Asian American community, especially those from South Asia. Happy Navaratri. I hope you have a blessed Navaratri this holiday season, and Vijay Dashami this weekend. To answer your question, Paula B., and I agree, Ryan and Jason have given very well thought out answers. I would also add, I think what's become very complex for the government CIO in particular is that we're a gear. Our office has become a gear in the way the different operational gears work for a federal agency. And our role is evolving more so than ever. If you look at what FITARA and OMB and whatnot mandates have asked of CIOs and the purveyance and oversight of data, right? So now you have CIOs, CTOs, CDOs, whatnot, and where does that information roll up into? And so for CIOs, you have to, that role has evolved from not just basic software and hardware, but understanding business requirements and being smart with that TBM model. And I think it's definitely become more interesting as CIOs play a very unique role in collecting and using the data for the premise of evidence-based policymaking decision-making, right? So we see all the different dots, and we can quickly connect all the dots and help the other programmatic offices and mission operation support entities do their job more effectively. But we have to make sure that we're ensuring our seat at the table in providing that most effective value, and especially with government IT systems and the legacy applications that many of them have. Overcoming that technical debt and making sure you iterate quickly requires a speedier framework that I think is both a mix of agile and Kanban. And so, there's a lot of massive spend. I saw this at SBA where, millions to hundreds of millions of dollars, and even at Commerce and whatnot. And so how do we be more judicious about ensuring that return on investment? But it's not that kind of venture capital startup return on investment. It's making sure taxpayer dollars are being effectively utilized and harnessed so that people are getting better results from the government agencies from a support and programmatic service perspective.
You're so right. You touch on a core issue that I have as a taxpayer, right? What is the value that we get from all our taxpayers' dollars in government? One is as a federal contractor, but as a taxpayer, what benefit I'm getting. You touched on a lot of my answers to a lot of my other questions, but I'll still carry on with it. My next question is on driving agile innovation. Companies that don't innovate will die. And that's the world CIOs face today, and tomorrow doesn't look any different. CIOs need to drive their organization to become agile businesses that encourage regular innovation. How are you driving agile in your organization? And let me start with Jason, then move on to Nagesh and Ryan for the answers.
So thank you for the question. There's a lot of ways. I know at the Department of Education, we have an innovation fund where we set aside funding so that we can seed some of the innovation and creativities, which is always a challenge. It's what's the right amount? What are the right activities? The challenge, of course, being that we're now in a pandemic and we have to do all these things in spite of some of the challenges with people either being physically in the office or not. One of the things I will say that, at least certainly in my time at education, is having a plan. We spent a lot of time developing a plan. We have a 5-year IT modernization plan that everything aligns to. So when we're looking at innovation and creativity, it is usually set to solve one of the challenges that we know we face. One of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to consolidate cloud because we had a lot of cloud. Well, from a cost standpoint, it's not significant in terms of the amount of one provider versus another, but the administrative overhead is something that we're looking at. We also wanted to look at system rationalization of how do we start shrinking the amount of systems that we have, which in turn reduces the surface area from a threat standpoint. And then last, but certainly not least, looking at ways to automate a lot of the manual processes that we have, leveraging things like RPA or ML or AI or those types of technologies. So those are some of the ways, but it literally starts with, we have a fund, we have a plan, and then it's engaging with our customers to make sure that we're addressing their needs as well. Because if we're not addressing the needs of our business and the customers, it doesn't matter what we do. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Nagesh, let's hear your response on what you guys are doing at Commerce.
Sure. I mean, from Commerce and also from the SBA perspective, I've been implementing an awful lot of that DevSecOps methodology. And I think from an agile perspective, really baking in that customer experience and leveraging what that customer experience, that 360 framework would look like so that we can actually continue to iterate and further refine. I think what's become interesting is that as you see a lot of federal agency CIO offices become more comfortable with the SaaS approach, right? And we start to move away from the infrastructure support or platform as service support models. You can enable a little bit better agile framework because you have that quick on-the-spot delivery. I think all of us many of us have seen that example with the pizza as a service model. And so, Jason brought a good point again. It comes down to what those business requirements look like. And so if we have a better understanding what the business requirements are, and you can solve a lot of these problems with commercial off-the-shelf solution technologies, your customizations and iterations thereafter don't have to be so massive. You can do a lot of one-off customization, but do so in a more consistent manner. And Jason brought up a good point again, that 3 to 5 year strategy plan is so important when you craft that agile framework and that enable that DevSecOps model. The biggest point I would remind everyone again and again and again, stick to the plan. Stick to the plan, stick to the plan, stick to the plan. And if you do have to pivot and justify your pivot. And it gets a little tough, I get it, with the little p and the big P politics that can get in the way of things from time to time. But if you can stick to a base plan that everyone understands and agrees with, you can ensure that buy-in across the board. It'll go a lot smoother.
Ryan, your thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Pallavi. And I echo what both Jason and Nagesh have said. And I would add to that, one of the focuses here at Transportation for me, since I got here and will continue to be moving forward, and we're actually accelerating it, is all around people and culture, right? You can have the best plan in the world, but you don't have the people to execute it, it won't work. You can have as much money as you can have, but if you don't have the right people, it won't work. And Agile, if you use just the buzzword Agile, right, is what it is. It's a methodology or a framework, and for us, it's all those things, but it's also a mindset, right? We want our people to be able to believe in themselves and believe that we can act with speed and act courageously and just move the needle, right? It's one of the criticisms I always heard and experienced somewhat firsthand coming into government for the first time was there's a lot of mindset here where, well, it's just the way it's always been, and it's hard to move the needle in government because, a lot of excuses, whether lack of budgets or leadership changes every 18 months or 4 years or whatever it is. There are a lot of reasons why people get discouraged and they feel beaten down and they find it really hard to be excited to come to work every day and to be innovative and to be agile and to be passionate about change and modernization and digital transformation, things like that. So my focus, in addition to all the things the other guys mentioned, again, really is on people. We've recently reorganized my office, restructured, and added 3 senior CIO leadership positions. One's a chief innovation officer, and that person, when she comes on here shortly, will be tasked with this very question on how do we innovate at scale? How do we move the needle in the short amount of time we've been given? And another one of the positions is around people and culture and leadership and talent acquisition, talent retention, talent management, because again, it really will come down to the people. And I believe, the CIO has a lot of different hats we wear every day, right? But the main one that we have to get right is building a team and building a culture and building people that are excited and passionate to come to work every day to try to execute the plans that we all agree is the best strategy forward. So that's what I find most exciting about the job personally, and just the most rewarding, and where I try to focus as much time as I possibly can. And that's just on leadership development and people development, investing in training for my people, and getting them excited and remind them that we're in an amazing field in IT, and they should never be complacent and never stop wanting to grow and learn and stretch themselves and take it to the next level. Because me personally, I just think it's the most fun thing in the world to do. Love coming to work every day. And I want people to share that.
You all bring up good points, because even from a vendor perspective, I see that when there is communication and understanding, and when you carry the team, whether it's a federal team or the contractor team, that little innovation, knowing that it's not going to be stuck in the big P and the small p of politics, is motivating across the board and causes us to bring an innovation to the table that we've learned across agencies. With that, let me move on to my next question. Nagesh did touch on it briefly, but let's talk about modernization. The current times have highlighted the importance of investing in modernization and the need for all agencies to develop and implement their IT modernization plans. What are some of the lessons you have learned and the challenges? And are there true benefits to modernizing, and how fast should you modernize? With that, Nagesh, do you want to?
Sure. I'll reflect actually from what I saw in my prior job at SBA, although I did see a little bit of it already at Commerce with BIS, but primarily it was with SBA, the ability to be remote work ready and telework ready with the right devices. I think that was crucial in making sure people were capable and able to use the devices without, like, from a self-service model almost, right? And so I think that was interesting at SBA that we were able to go into a remote work environment pretty quickly. Within a week or so, we were able to turn that on. And actually, with the virtual command center that I oversaw for my team to build out for the administrator, we built that in about 72, 96 hours kind of framework. We used an off-the-shelf, O365 solution. We used Teams, and we built it out over time. We put the skeletal framework up and running. People were used to the tool enough to communicate and work with each other. And then, we did some crash courses on the spot within a few days of having built out the framework. And then folks got used to it pretty quickly. Within a few weeks, I would say within a month time, they started to get the really hang of using these collaboration tools and whatnot. So I think in today's remote work situation, it's redefining that future of work for all of us, whether it's the public or private sector. I think what's been interesting too is that you've seen the IT companies across the world fast track a lot of innovations very quickly. I think I read in the New York Times or whatnot, like maybe close to 10 years worth of software innovation occurred over a few months time frame because you had so many people going on their remote laptops or tablets or iPhones or smartphones or whatnot. And you got a lot of feedback very quickly for the developers to see what worked and what didn't work and in what variable settings, so that new patches and new updates could happen pretty quickly. So for us, it's been a huge learning lesson, I think, for the entire federal government to understand what key foundational pieces of infrastructure you need to enable a more remote work setting. And I think it's probably asking ourselves, what does that brick and mortar real estate need to really look like if you can get a lot of work done from home?
And when you work remotely, the amount of resources which Ryan touched on, the manpower and the talent that you get is indefinite. With that, Ryan, on to you.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll take this opportunity to just give a quick shout out to my boss and a plug for her. I understand she did the keynote opening address for this. So, a lot of what we're doing here today at DOT as relates to IT really is credited to the leadership of the Secretary Elaine Chao. Unlike many previous secretaries before her, she could have come in here and simply managed the department and let it continue to run the way it has been for decades, and she would have done a tremendous job. But she really grabbed the helm of the ship and turned it 180 degrees. And by that, what I would touch on is the shared services model that she said we will implement during her time here. And that's not just in IT, but it's in all the areas of the department. It's in HR and finance and IT. Because we're a very siloed department, we have 9 different agencies or modes within the Department of Transportation, and for decades everyone had operated independently. Now that's one way to do it. Certainly, you can have pros and cons of either model, but she said it doesn't make sense for the American taxpayer that we have 9 of everything, right? 9 help desks and 9 IT departments and 9 finance departments and 9 HR departments. So she said, nope, it's time to do the hard thing, bite the bullet, and we're going to move to a shared services model that we believe we can be excellent across every mode of the department. So it really is a Herculean lift to do that sort of massive change in a government department of this size. But again, my hat's off to her for accepting that challenge and leading the rest of us through that. So part of that now for us, as it relates specifically to IT, is we have shed a lot of redundancy and a lot of duplication across all these modes. So we have consolidated. We did have a lot of success in commodity IT and getting us to a shared services delivery model, which frankly is the only reason we were successful when we pivoted to mass telework for COVID. Had we had 9 networks and 9 different departments to try to switched to mass telework, we would have had 9 different outcomes, frankly, across the maturity of levels of those organizations. But because we were centralized and had one relatively new network, new standard, a new process, we were able to flip a switch and keep working, no issue. So for us, again, we're on this journey. We're not done, certainly. There's a lot of work to do as we continue down this road of consolidation. We have over 3,500 applications in the department that we know of, that we found, right? We think we found them all. We hope we found them all. But we now know we have to eliminate at least half of those, many from a risk perspective, a legacy perspective, but also just, again, for duplication of it, the rationalization and the common sense it is to eliminate these multiple instances of the same applications residing in multiple modes. We know we can do that much better, much smarter, with great cost savings to the taxpayer. So our modernization strategy is really marching in step with the Secretary's vision here for a shared services model as it relates to the whole department. Again, we will always approach modernization from a need perspective or a risk perspective, right? Without trying to disparage our great friends at Microsoft, I've been in this business long enough to see what the model used to be, right? Every 3 years, we'd get a new operating system from Microsoft. And every 3 years, we'd all rush out and pay our $99 to $299 for our Windows 95, 98, SE, XP upgrades. And upgrading for the sake of upgrading is a waste of resources, both money and labor. So we're not going to upgrade something that doesn't need upgraded. If it's working, it's stable, the risk is low, and the return from that, from a user perspective, if it's giving the customer the capability they need, we don't need to touch that. We are not on a path of upgrading and modernizing just for the sake of having the shiniest, brightest, newest toy out there. Our desire to modernize and our path to modernize will, again, always be driven by either shedding risk, eliminating risk of legacy debt, or getting us to a new capability that we must have and need to have, whether it's for our external public-facing constituents and customers and consumers of DOT, or our internal customers who need us to deliver a tool or a capability or a product to make them more productive. But again, not a fan of the upgrades for the sake of upgrades sort of path. And again, I will say to our great partners at Microsoft and other vendors around the world, we've kind of gotten off that model now too, right? Everything is sort of SaaS now. It's delivered as a service. Upgrades are almost seamless, and we a lot of times don't know when they add features, and so I think this whole industry continues to evolve to the point where upgrades will be continuous and they will be seamless and invisible to users, and we'll just keep adding capability and hopefully eliminating and lowering risk as we go.
That's a good point. Modernization, just for the sake of modernization, doesn't do justice to our taxpayer dollars. You don't really need the shiniest thing if something is not broken and doesn't need to be replaced. Jason, you're...
So again, I love going last because I get to build off of what everyone else said, because I completely agree. I want to touch on something that Ryan said about people. Because when you're modernizing an environment from a technology standpoint, you need to make sure that you're bringing your team along and you're enhancing and building and growing their skills and experience and expertise. Because otherwise, none of the magic happens, right? You need everyone to bring about the change that happens. Another thing that Ryan touched on is support from leadership. In terms of lessons learned, I will say that certainly the secretary, deputy secretary, all the assistant secretaries at education have been 100% supportive of the modernization efforts. But another lesson learned is one thing I think government does have a challenge doing, at least in agencies I've been at, is we try to boil the ocean, and we need to start smaller. And I know there's a lot of reason behind that, but we need to start small. When the secretary first got on board, we had a massive modernization effort we needed to do for our financial management system. She was absolutely supportive, said great. And what that did is it gave the team the opportunity to demonstrate that in a set amount of time with a set amount of funding that we can deliver a set amount of results that does buy down risk and does enhance and improve capability and functionality. And then, of course, you get more support and buy-in there, so that last year when we transitioned and modernized off of a 12-year-old legacy IT service contract into all new everything. We're one of the first agencies that transitioned to 100% Windows 10, all of it done in a really short amount of time. I mean, we literally transitioned around 5,000 laptops in around 3 months. And that would not have happened if we wouldn't have had leadership support, if we wouldn't have had end user support. Everyone knew. I remember first reaching out. You go and you want to communicate what's going on and try to get buy-in to what you're trying to do. And one of the biggest principal offices at the department, we reached out and I said, hey, I know you're a large office, but we really want to, get started with you guys. You don't have to go first. And they're like, no, we want to go first. Great. Sign us up, which is, again, a dream come true. And then the collaboration and partnership is key because now I literally have assistant secretaries coming to me saying, hey, I want to leverage this, robotic process automation to help ease the work of the team that I have. So it's not me or my team really pushing this is what we need to do to modernize. It's literally the business coming and saying, hey, we want to do this. And I love it because it's not, oh, by the way, we did this and now you have to figure out how to make it secure. It's, we want to do this. We want your involvement. We want, so that, and then the last lesson learned, I would say, again, goes back to people, is you never want to underestimate the ability and capability of your team. I have been extremely impressed when the pandemic first hit at the innovative and creative ways that people have been able to find solutions in extremely short amounts of times that you just got to give not only people the support, but have a little faith in their abilities. And that's the team, but also the vendor community. I have been extremely impressed with the very genuine desire to help government. And it's not, hey, I want to make a business. It's, hey, I want to help solve this problem that as a globe we're facing. And I have been really impressed. So I think you have to set aside the little bit of cynicism, if you will, and say, no, they actually really do want to help, and let's work together to help, whether it's modernized because of some rapidly changing requirements that suddenly happened because of the pandemic, or future looking at, hey, these are some great ideas and we want to help. So those are a few thoughts.
So you're so right, Jason. Vendors get a bad name. We're called the Beltway Bandits, right? All federal contractors. But most of us actually want to leave a legacy behind. We want to do some good and say, okay, this is what I did to, help the government, and leave it as, be a role model for our children, or just leave it down as something we look forward to later on in life. So we really are not Beltway Bandits. But moving on to, we've talked about remote work, and a reality of remote work and modernization and this new workplace, even pre-COVID, is security, right? The challenge for a CIO in 2020 and beyond is to find strong ways to secure the systems that at the same time don't slow down innovation or block people from the data they need. How are you maintaining security without limiting innovation or even alienating the users? The geeks don't want to be slowed down. So how do you manage that balance? And let me start with Ryan this time.
Sure. Thank you for the question. That is perhaps one of the greatest challenges of the job today, right? Because the cyber risk is huge every day. We're always on defense, as they say, and always a day or a step behind the bad guys as we try to figure out their new tactics and threat vectors. So it is a delicate and difficult balance between mitigating the risk and not stifling innovation. We want to allow our people to be creative, allow them to be innovative, and deploy new technologies. But again, it can't ever come at the cost of increasing our risk. So we've done a lot of things here in the last couple of years as we've moved in the shared services direction around consolidating all of our cyber efforts. We are currently working on modernizing our SOC and our cyber capabilities there. We're constantly evaluating and deploying new tools, trying to stay ahead of the bad actors, and trying to keep changing our defenses so they can't ever figure out exactly what we're up to. So it's a constant game of cat and mouse, as we know in cyber, and always swapping out older tools with newer tools if they're more effective, and asking our partners to really work closely with us to innovate around different needs that we have. And then again, for the most part, as it relates to deploying new technologies and being innovative, our hands are tied largely by process, right? We know whether it's different guidelines we get from FATAR or from FISMA, different things, and just the regulations around ATOs and things like that. We're not going to release a new application into the wild until it's been fully tested and fully vetted and has actually been signed off on, not only by our cyber folks, right, but by our legal folks and everyone else who has equities in that game. The very last thing we want to do is release any sort of new capability that presents increased threat or risk to the department. So again, always just a tough game of balance between deploying new capabilities while not introducing new risks to the environment.
Thank you for that answer, because that's very insightful. Jason, on to you.
Again, I love going second here. Completely agree with everything Ryan said. I think communication and collaboration has been absolutely critical in terms of what are the things we're seeing. I know there's been a lot of targeted cybersecurity related activities going on by bad actors who are trying to leverage the pandemic and exploit, just pick it. So that's something that we have really focused a lot on from an education standpoint, making sure that we're educating our customers, everyone on what are the risks that we're seeing. The other thing is, which has been absolutely critical, and I would certainly thank Suzette Kent and now Maria Rote as well, the collaboration in the CIO Council has been phenomenal. It is great because you've got a bunch of other individuals who are dealing with very similar challenges, and we're leveraging those experiences and expertise so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. When we have challenges, we can talk about it. We can bring those challenges up, and 9 times out of 10, it's, oh yeah, we've had that, and this is what we did, given the environment. So I think that has been absolutely essential from a strategy standpoint and a resource standpoint to any of the CIOs. That has been great. And then the last piece I would say, and I know Ryan hit on this as well, the partnering with vendors. That has been really helpful, meaning either existing vendors or even vendors who we've had a lot more time to have conversations with about different capabilities that they're providing and looking at how does that align with the strategy of what we're doing going forward. One of the unique situations being in education is we have a contractor-owned, contractor-operated model. So oftentimes vendors will come to me and say, I've got this great solution for you, where in reality, it's a great solution for a vendor who's providing service to us, which is great because I still want to know about it because it allows me to connect those individuals together to figure out how we can improve the way that we're managing IT or securing our systems and data. So literally education, communication, collaborating with the CIO Council and the vendor partnerships has been certainly ways that that we are working towards it. But to Ryan's point, it's a never-ending battle. It is something that we are going to continue to focus on, certainly for the foreseeable future.
Both you and Ryan brought up this point about, the CIOs collaborating and the vendors collaborating. And I've seen in the earlier years, I didn't see that, but more and more I find myself doing brown bags across different agencies I work with, sharing lessons I learned. So I'll take a lesson learned at USPTO and take it to education or take it to census and vice versa, because everybody wants to know what doesn't work or what worked in the past. So I think that collaboration helps both the federal sector as well as the vendors playing in that sector. With that, Nagesh, your thoughts?
I concur completely with Jason and Ryan's perspectives. I mean, that public-private partnership model matters. And I think it goes back to what Ryan and Jason were saying before, dealing with the culture change of people and educating them, that upskilling and cyber awareness, it's October. So that's National Cyber Awareness Month. And so being this, timely topic for us to make sure we remind folks of that enhanced cybersecurity posture we have to maintain. I think it is very difficult for government in particular to, straddle that line of embracing innovation and in cutting edge innovation, but at the same time ensuring that we maintain a risk posture so that we do not have a breach, right? That it's just a very tough situation. Yeah, I think we all recall the situation that happened about 7-8 years ago with OPM and the breach there and whatnot. We are a target right off the bat because we're a federal agency. A hacker who breaks into our systems gets kudos for doing that amongst their friends. And so, we have to be a bit more mindful about all that in general. And I think Ryan and Jason really touched on it well. The CIO Council is phenomenal. As a student and protege of Maria Rope, she has done a great job in helming that council forward after Suzette Kent, who did a great job too. I think from the federal government perspective, besides that engagement on the committees, I'm on the innovation subcommittee for the CIO Council, but we had these pilots going on. NSBA, we did the TIC pilot, right? Trusted Internet Connection. And so now we're on TIC 3.0. And so looking at the model that DHS and CISA is doing on TIC 3.0 and whatnot, and developing better continuous diagnostic monitoring is going to be helpful too. But at the end of the day, it requires just all of us to be on the same page, on the boat or on the bus together, going in the same direction and trying to work together and building off each other's wins. And when when one of us fails, being able to lift each other up on that failure and help mitigate it quickly rather than, like when I was doing SBA with COVID response, we got a lot of support from the other federal agencies wanting to step in and help us out, from NASA to OMB and whatnot. They stepped up and called us up immediately and said, how can we help? And so, that trusted network and being able to work with each other is really important.
You're so right there. And I think more and more with this communication and encompassing of the vendors in the discussion, because there are SMEs on our side of the world, it's truly motivating from a vendor perspective, and we really feel part of the team. Now, there's another topic which all of you have touched on, the remote work. And I see it being Census is a very big customer of ours. And for years, we could not have anybody work remote because we touched Title 13 and Title 26 data. So the other employees in Harmonia, which has 400 employees, would complain. They all wanted to be on my census project, did not want to be on my census project because there was not even a day of telecommute. From one day to the other in March, my entire team on census went remote. There were infrastructure issues, but I think it's the fastest movement on the government and the vendor side in terms of providing infrastructure support to make it possible. What have you all seen in your agencies to enable this infrastructure support for remote work, along with the security challenges and modernization challenges we've already discussed? And this time, Jason, I won't give you an out. You'll go first, so you don't have anybody.
Okay, Ryan, this is your key to send me your messages. So, that's a great question. So a couple things. One, the Department of Education, I think it was very fortuitous, if you will, because as I mentioned, we were in the process of a massive IT modernization effort. I cannot say highly enough about how critical that played into our ability to transition to being nearly 100% remote. And literally, I've been asked the question, can you imagine how this would be if we hadn't done this? And that's a horrible nightmare of a situation. So I really appreciated the fact that we had the support, whether it was from a funding or resource or literally the support to get things done. So modernizing has been absolutely critical to the successful transition. And like you were mentioning, literally over a weekend, it was, okay, now we're going to be remote, no issues. I know I've said before, I think our average speed to answer went to 55 seconds on day one. And by day three, we were down to 14 seconds, which our service level agreement is 30 seconds. And we've been there ever since. So it took a little bit, but it was more people getting acclimated to, okay, this is how I log in. This is how I leverage the VPN daily. So I think from a preparedness standpoint, modernization really helped us out in so many ways. That allowed us to ensure we had the infrastructure in place, the devices in place, that were actually working very quickly. As I had mentioned before, literally the last couple of years, I've been talking a lot about this. It was taking us 15 to 20 minutes to log in, and now it's around 42 seconds to log in. If we had the 15 to 20 minutes to log in situation, being in a remote environment with the overhead from a VPN standpoint. I'm not sure I would be here today. So I think from it was very fortuitous, if you will, that we had that. The other thing was the support for it. I mean, given the environment we're in, the secretary, everyone was absolutely supportive of, okay, we're transitioning. What's been really fascinating was more of a transition from, and I'll just speak for myself, from, okay, how do I make sure that, everything is going to continue working as it has before the pandemic, to now being more focused on how do I make sure that my team isn't working too much? A lot of people have had a real, I would just say, challenge or struggle separating from your personal life, which is one of the things I talk to the team a lot about. Transitioning to 100% remote environment is, one, we need to make sure that people are not working too much, because literally, which I'm really strict on, hey, don't send emails after hours, because we need to make sure that people have their own time. The other thing that I've really pushed a lot, and again, this goes to what Ryan had talked about earlier, is about people. What I've noticed, and I'm sure we've all seen, is those organic conversations that you used to have with individuals when you're walking down the hall from one meeting to another meeting. Those aren't happening as organically. So what I've talked to my team about is we need to make those things happen, so that it's not just having a meeting to walk through a list of deliverables on where are you at. It's more of the, well, how are you doing? And how is your family doing? And what are the things that are going on in your life? So from a more structured approach, and I mean, again, it's the focus isn't on really a generic, hey, I'm doing this because I have to. It's literally, we have a lot of people who are working, and some individuals who are juggling, young children in school or daycare and work. And you see that a lot in our collaboration tools, which is wonderful. But it's making a concerted effort as we've adjusted to the remote environment that we're in now, so that we're actually connecting in ways that before maybe we just took for granted, because I'm walking from one meeting to another, literally 30 seconds, see someone, hey, how was your weekend? Those don't happen anymore. So it's making a concerted effort to make sure we're paying attention and having those conversations.
You're so right, Jason. The struggle, even for me as a business owner, has not been that people are not working enough. I think people are working too much to overcompensate, and that separation doesn't happen. I see it even in my life, and that can eventually lead to burnout if we don't know how to manage that. Nagesh, your thoughts on it?
I echo everything Jason said. I think at the end of the day, I don't think there's much more I can add to that. I mean, it's about balancing expectations and understanding the rules of the road. Again, I think it also comes down to, with remote work and whatnot, what are the business requirements? I'm in a bureau which is both national security and law enforcement within commerce. And so our directives are a little bit different from some of the other civilian bureaus and agencies across the federal government. Some of the work that our mission does requires working in a SCIF. And those essential jobs and duties and responsibilities require folks to come on site and work in a secure room, because we can't fathom a budget to put personal SIPR or JWIX SIPR terminals in folks' homes. We can't do that. And I think I think it comes down to the mission needs and responsibilities for the work done by the mission personnel.
Ryan?
Yeah, thank you. Again, I would echo what Jason said. We were very fortunate. Fortuitous is a great word. We were very fortunate that we were on the tail end of this modernization and shared services journey. I can't, give enough credit to the Secretary for her leadership in getting us to that point. And we were right place at the right time. Frankly, we got very lucky and fortunate that we had done the work for the first 2 years of this administration, getting the network flattened and hardened and centralized. And when we decided it was going to happen and the time was coming, it was very simple for us to simply add some VPN licensing to our concentrators, add some VDI capability to our environment, and up our circuits with AT&T and give us more bandwidth. And again, that was a team effort across the board from the very top. Leadership said, what can we do? What can we do to help? Whether it was procurement folks or budget folks or anyone, everyone moved mountains in heaven and earth to get us acquisitions in record time. And I've told this story once before. I'll share it again. I love about 2 weeks before we all went home in March, we kind of knew this was coming. We had started to make the purchases. We were upgrading our licenses, upgrading our environment, and we sort of knew that the day would come very soon when we would have this order. Everyone's going to work from home. And I happened to be riding in an elevator with two individuals who didn't know who I was. And of course, they were talking, and there were rumors flying about, are we going to be sent home? Are we not going to be sent home? And one of them said, yeah, well, it looks like we're going to all be sent home mass telework, and that's going to be crazy because nothing's going to work. They really had no idea the work that the CIO's office had done for the last 18 to 24 months in getting the network ready. And they simply said, yeah, well, it's going to be a joke. You know, connections won't work. Nothing's going to work. We're basically going to go home and go on vacation. And I very politely said, hey, I don't mean to butt into your conversation, but I think you're wrong. And I said, very politely, I said, we've actually been working very hard to make this network robust and secure. And I said, we've upgraded the circuit capacity. We've upgraded VDI licenses, VPN. I said, I think everyone's going to go home and you're going to be surprised at how great this network functions. And of course, the two individuals were very embarrassed once I told them who I was, and they felt bad. I said, no, don't worry about it. I said, just please promise me that after you go home, send me an email after a couple of weeks and let me know your experience, because I really believe it's going to be fantastic. And sure enough, they did. And again, we know now from history that everyone did go home. And again, our network was fabulous. Connections worked. And again, it's just a testament to the hard work that the people did for the year and a half leading up to it. The great leadership from our secretary in deciding, centralization was the answer. And it was absolutely fun being a part of that, and historic for all of us, of course. Now, of course, the key is how do we maintain this and how do we continue to tweak it and add capability, add resilience, keep monitoring the risk, keep the bad actors out of it. And again, I've shared this before in other arenas, but I think telework is here to stay at a larger scale than we've ever imagined before. We've proven that it works. We've proven we can be productive. And I think the last hurdle to overcome, especially for managers and leaders, where you always wondered if your people were actually working at home, right? You always wondered if there was productivity taking place. And now we don't have a choice. We know we're no longer taking attendance as you walk in the door every day and seeing if you're in your cubicle every day. The only measurement we have for people is productivity. And we have seen our productivity go through the roof. I tell people all the time, we have not become less productive. In fact, we've become more productive. And like Jason said, we have to tell people to unplug, tell people to stop working, say, look, you're at home. And I appreciate all the work you do during the day at home, but it's nighttime now. Go be with your children or go out to dinner or go do something. But again, we've had to remind people that now that you share your home with me and with your coworkers, you have to know when to close the door and kick us out, and remember that that's your home, and have that time to yourself and have that balance that we're striving for.
You're so right. It's become more and more challenging to separate work life, and that balance is very important. Now, I must do justice to my audience, and I won't do it if I don't ask the following question. My company, Harmonia, is a federal contractor, and I bet you most of the people in the audience are federal contractors, and they're here listening to us, trying to understand how they can help the government. What are the initiatives that they can help with? What is your roadmap in the next 2-3 years in this new world? And where can the vendors play? Nagesh, can I start with you this time?
Sure. Let me go a little bit more generic rather than the specifics for BIS, partially because it's a little bit sensitive to the work we do in general, and we're not in a skiff, so I can't go. I don't want to get in trouble. I think from a generic perspective, what's useful for the GovCon community is understand your options and understand what different acquisition contracting vehicles and models are out there. Big advice I would give to the folks, and I've dealt with this for a while now. Oh God, longer than I've ever thought I would again. But know the needs of the mission, know the needs of the agency, and know the understand what their requirements are, and understand what technology platforms and solutions they're utilizing, and how you can help improve, leverage, or build off of what they have. Obviously, if they're dealing with legacy debt, what can they do to help modernize quickly and enable a leapfrog to happen? If they've already done a serious bout of modernization, what is it they can go towards, and what innovative solutions you can provide? If you understand their customer requirements and needs, and can help them figure out ways to augment and improve on that efficacy, I think that's going to go a long way in fostering a better relationship. And I think, again, biggest thing is deliver. Know what the deliverables are, and make sure you do deliver. I think that allows for a more productive relationship.
Ryan, how can we service your agency?
Well, I'm sort of new to government, new-ish still, first time here. Although I'm starting to learn the job. I think I might take a little different approach to this, but I will take this opportunity to address all the vendors who are constantly trying to get a hold of me or get my attention. I apologize for not responding to the hundreds of emails I get every week, or the hundreds of requests I get on LinkedIn to connect and message me. As much as I would love to, I can't possibly keep up. And please don't take it personally that you haven't heard back from me. Again, I love to have an open door policy. I always tell my people I'm as accessible as I can be, but I cannot possibly respond to the thousands of requests I get to do business with the department. And it's really not the right way to do it anyway. As you can imagine, I also have, kind of some levels of filters between me and others, and people help me with my email and channel vendors here and there. And I don't see all of the messages that try to reach me every day. But what I place the most stock in, honestly, is, again, if you are a vendor or solution provider, anyone who's trying to do business at the department, first of all, you better be good at what you claim you can do, and you better have a proven track record of success. And the number one thing I ask any one of them that do finally, get to me and have a conversation is, I want to talk to 2 other federal CIOs who you've worked with in the past 3 years that will vouch for you. And that's it. I place complete trust in my colleagues in federal government, who many have been here a lot longer than I have been. And that's all I tell these people. I don't want to hear about your capabilities or your tool or your product before we even start to date or dance. I need 2 references, people who will vouch for you, that say you delivered them a good product or a good service at a fair price, and you did it on time and on budget. And again, if you can get another federal CIO to vouch for you, you will go a long way with getting my attention and doing business at the department. And again, it's a small world. Everyone here kind of knows everyone, and reputations are critical. But again, as Jason touched on earlier, Suzette did a fantastic job of building a collaborative community here. Maria continues that legacy. We have a wonderful community of federal CIOs who I trust implicitly, who will give me good advice on who to trust or who to not trust, because it's a double-sided coin. And so do right by your customers every time. Your reputation will precede you. And if you want to do work here specifically with us, come with a couple of referrals in your back pocket, and that'll help you a lot.
For the last 2 minutes, Jason, can you give us advice on how we can work with you?
So I'm so glad to go last, because I completely agree with everything that's been said. And I also apologize for everyone who has tried to get on my schedule. I've had a real challenge with it, because literally I'll get thousands of emails saying, hey, the one thing I would say is that we constantly I will be engaged with people who have not done their homework. They don't know the organization. And it's a bit disappointing where someone will come in and say, hey, I want to be able to deliver enterprise email to you. And I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting. We have enterprise email, so I'm trying to understand what you're trying to offer. So I often will engage with individuals who will try to figure out what I need from a business development standpoint in the conversation. And what I really appreciate is people coming prepared. So definitely come prepared. There's a lot of information out there about every department. You can look at every annual FSMA audit that's publicly available and see, here are some opportunities. Anything that, that I concur on is something I know that is either in the works or something that I need. That would be one area. IT modernization. I have talked about it certainly in the last 4.5 years, certainly the last couple of years or few years, a lot. Very interested from a cloud consolidation standpoint. What sort of capability exists out there that can make that easy? We are 100% cloud. I don't have any data centers, but I have a lot of cloud and I want to reduce that. System rationalization. Had a lot of work done on that when I see numerous instances of a similar or exact same solution. Very interested in how do I reduce that? How do I remove that? Where's the value that I'm getting there? And system automation. Very interested in what can I do? I know and I've been out there speaking about this, I think we had 40 some different systems that have very specific manual processes. Great. What tools, technologies, capabilities are out there that can help streamline that, reduce that, automate that to help improve and give back my customers the time that they take to do the things that they're doing. So there's just a lot of information that's already out there. And then again, just to Ryan's point, reputation is absolutely critical. If I have a vendor, and I've had numerous that come to me that are very prepared, they're like, hey, we've done some research. We know exactly what we're looking. This is what we can provide. In some cases, there may be contracts that are in place. In some cases, there may be contracts that are underway or acquisitions so that I can't talk about. But anyway, come prepared for the environment and talk about the value that you can deliver.
That's great advice. I think all of us benefit from that because the one thing I learned was the references, right? If I came to you guys with references and having done my homework on, we understand sitting on the outside, this is what your needs might be and this is the solution. I might miss the mark, but you'll at least know that I'm committed, right, to doing my research. With that, thank you, all of you, for taking out the time. I know your calendars are very busy, and I have hounded you over the last 3 weeks, but really appreciate you being here. A heartfelt thanks from AACC, and look forward to seeing you on the panel again next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.